So since we recently got My Hero Academia Season 5's teaser trailer, I want to talk about what the first arc of that season is going to be, which is what we predominantly see in that trailer, and it's the joint training arc, which is honestly one of the better arcs in the series. I really enjoyed it. So that's pretty much what I'm going to be talking about and explaining in this video. I'm not going to go over every single little detail about it, but I'm going to talk about the matchups, what happens, and like the major plot points of this arc. So let's get into it. So it's decided that Class 1A and Class 1B are going to have the joint training exercise where they're basically going to square off against each other in matches that consist of 4-person teams, and they're going to have 5 rounds, you know, considering that there's 20 students in each class. But the little added curveball in there is that Shinso is going to be added into this joint training arc. You might remember Shinso from the sports festival arc. He's the purple-haired guy who has the mind control quirk. And he's come back into the story now, and we remember that he was interested in being a hero, and he wanted to join the hero, study courses, but he couldn't get into it. But now they're kind of making an exception for him, and this is kind of like his audition, I guess, to get into the hero training. So with his addition, it makes the numbers odd. It'll bring it to like 41, which means that there would be teams that are uneven. So he's going to have to compete twice, meaning that he's going to be on Class 1A's team for one portion and then Class 1B's team for the other portion. So it kind of evens things out. So they all draw lots, and the 4 teams for each classes are decided. So the first team for Class 1A is Tsuyu, Kirishima, Kaminari, and Koda. Team 2 will be Aoyama, Yaoyorozu, Hagakure, Tokuyami. Team 3 will be Ida, Shoji, Shoto, and Ojiro. Team 4 will be Bakugo, Jiro, Sero, and Sato. And then the final Team 5 will be Izuku, Uraraka, Ashido, and Mineta. And for Class B, their first team will be Shiozaki, Shishida, Hiryu, and Subaraba. Team 2 will be Komari, Kendo, Kurohiro, and Fukudashi. Team 3 will be Pony, Hononuki, Kaibara, and Tetsu. Team 4 will be Kamakiri, Tokage, Iwase, and Bando. And Team 5 will be Monoma, Kodai, Shota, and Yanagi. So what we were talking about with Shinso, how he's going to be on one of each of the teams for one of each of the battles, he's going to first be on Class 1A's first team for this first battle. So that means he's going to be with Tsuyu's team. So this first round is going to show us, what the majority of this arc is going to be about. And I suppose that's putting spotlight on Class 1B, because up until this point, we really didn't get to see or know much about them. Like, we got to see a little bit of them at the sports festival, and then we got to see a little bit more of them, once we got to the training camp arc, at the beginning of season 3. But now we're going to get introduced to each one of them individually, and we're going to find out what all of their quirks are, and I guess a little bit about their characters and personalities. So another thing is it's going to show how powerful they are, because they're Class 1. Just because they're B, it doesn't mean that they're really lackluster compared to A. They're both 1, and they're both very powerful. And that's a lot of what we're seeing here, because mostly a lot of these battles have to do with like 1 or 2 of the students like really showing how powerful they are and putting the team on their back. With this first round, it's Shishida and Shiozaki. They are very powerful. I mean, we knew that Shiozaki was somewhat formidable in the sports festival, but Shishida, we didn't really get to see too much of him, and he is a beast, pun intended. Like, that's his quirk pretty much, but he almost single-handedly defeats this whole entire first team here. I mean, it's kind of one-sided in the beginning. I mean, like, Kirishima and Koda get like captured and they're put away, and they don't really have any kind of spotlight in this arc. It's almost kind of sad, but I guess Kirishima had his development in the overhaul arc. But it eventually comes down to Tsuyu using some quick thinking along with the major help of Shinso, because it's also revealed that Shinso has this new type of voice modulator thing that you can see in the trailer for this arc, where it can modify his voice to make it sound like he's somebody else, which can trick you into responding to him, which is what he does. And this really leads to Shinso being like the MVP almost of this battle, besides Tsuyu, because he winds up controlling the whole battlefield, because it starts messing with all of 1B, and they can't even communicate with each other because they don't know who's saying what and where it's coming from, and this ultimately leads to them losing. And this ultimately leads to a 4-2 victory with Tsuyu, Shinso, and Kaminari picking up the victories here. So then we come to round 2, and it's going to be Yaoyorozu, Tokoyami, Hagakure, and Aoyama versus Kendo, Kurohiro, Fukudashi, and Komari. So this matchup is going to be less competitive than the first one, I would say. There are some moments for Class 1A's team in this, but they ultimately wind up losing here because it really spotlights how powerful Komori is. Like, her mushroom quirk is way more powerful than we initially thought, and it ultimately leads to her straight up defeating Tokoyami because she can like infect his lungs and whatnot. But Tokoyami does get some spotlight. We get to see his fallen black angel ability where he can essentially like fly, which he learned from his internship with Hawks. We also get to see Fukudashi's quirk here where he can like manifest onomatopoeia into like tangible words, and depending on what they mean can affect their abilities. It's pretty interesting, and it really helps them out a lot in this battle. But regardless, Class 1A loses this battle kind of handedly with like a 4-0 sweep from Class B here. So we're coming to round 3, and this is definitely the most interesting matchup so far because we're going to see Tetsu, Hononuki, Kaibara, Pony take on Ida, Shoji, Ojiro, and Shota. So this match is not the squash that you'd think it is because Class 1A clearly has, on paper, the better team here. Because we're going to find out that Hononuki and Tetsu are really powerful, especially Hononuki, because it's kind of forgotten up until this point that he's one of the recommended students to join the hero program, kind of like Shoto and Yaoyorozu were. And Hononuki really puts the team on his back because his softening quirk, it really changes everything, and he constantly turns the tables in this battle and benefits his team so much. He almost fights the entire Class 1A team by himself at one point. But another spotlight in this battle is Tetsu. He's had a lot of training off panel, and it shows here because he goes toe-to-toe with Shoto and almost winds up beating him. I mean, it's basically implied that he would have defeated him if there was no kind of intervention from either side. But Tetsu is able to fight back against Shoto's ice, and then Shoto lets go with his fire and starts using temperatures that are similar to that of Endeavor's. And Tetsu can even fight back through this. And like I said, he almost straight up defeats Shoto if it wasn't for the interventions from both sides. It ultimately comes down to a tie in this matchup, as everyone kind of knocks each other out at some point, and Hononuki with the assistance of Tetsu makes like this huge tower collapse, and it ultimately comes down to like Pony running out the clock by having her levitate above Shoji where he can't get them. So this is like the only tie that we're going to see in this matchup. So next up, the hype train continues because this is the first time we're going to see Bakugo in action in a very long time. I remember reading this when it was coming out and everybody was super excited for this. So it's going to be Bando, Tokage, Kamakiri, and Iwase versus Bakugo, Sato, Sero, and Jiro. And in the beginning of this matchup, the Class 1B kind of has the upper hand, but the tables turn quickly once Bakugo reveals that he's actually working with his team here. And in the beginning, it's kind of put forward that he's not going to have any kind of teamwork or camaraderie or synergy or anything, and he's kind of just going to make everybody follow his lead, which I guess does happen to some degree. But Bakugo winds up saving Jiro from Kamakari's attack, and then after that, it's kind of just a snowball effect of them absolutely dominating Class 1B here. This might be the most dominated matchup besides the next one that we're going to talk about possibly, but they get a 4-0 clean sweep in this matchup, and everybody's like super impressed with Bakugo and the teamwork of the others. And then we're coming to the last matchup here, which is going to be Izuku, Mineta, Ashido, and Uraraka against Kodai, Yanagi, Shota, and Monoma. And also we can't forget about Shinso because this is where he's going to join Class 1B. Very fitting, right? Because he's going to go against Izuku in the rematch, and the whole Veshid stuff has been building up at the beginning of this arc as well. So in the beginning, it's not really looking good for Izuku's team because Class B here, all of their quirks synergize very well with each other, and they're working together very well. Like Kodai has a size manipulation quirk, Yanagi has like a telekinesis quirk, and Shota has like this double impact quirk where if he makes something have impact, then he could, when he decides to, have it impact again. And they use this with various objects, and it's working very well in their favor. And of course, we have Monoma, who has like the copy quirk, and he copies all of their quirks and uses them accordingly. And about midway through the battle, Izuku is trying to take down Monoma, and he's going to use Air Force against him. But then suddenly, these black energy line whip things come out of him out of nowhere, and he starts to lose control, and it's like going all over the battlefield, and everybody's getting worried and everything. And then it's when Uraraka steps up and grabs Izuku to try to control him, and then tells Shinso to use his quirk on Izuku to get him under control, to which he eventually does. And this sends Izuku back into the Vestige world that we saw him go back into at the beginning of this arc and also in the sports festival. And this is where he meets one of the previous users of One For All by the name of Daigoro Banjo. And he's like, hey, you're using my quirk, which is called Black Whip. But also, you're going to unlock all of the quirks of the previous users of One For All, meaning that Izuku is going to eventually have 6 quirks. And then it's also revealed that they've been stored inside of the quirk factor of One For All as the generations have gone by. It's just how this works. It's pretty broken. Izuku eventually regains his composure along with the rest of 1A, and they slowly and methodically overcome Class 1B here and take them out in a clean sweep. They all win, 4-0. And with that victory, Class 1A wins the joint training. But then it's revealed by the teachers that Shinso will in fact join the Hero Studies course in his 2nd year, but they don't reveal which class he's going to join. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the joint training arc and what's going to comprise of, I suppose, the first half of Season 5. Maybe I'll make a follow-up video into what the 2nd arc is going to be, because that arc is probably even better than this one. But if this gets enough likes, then I guess I'll make that video. But let me know what you think about the joint training arc and what you think about Season 5 in general. If you liked the video, guys, please give it a like and please subscribe. Please subscribe. And I also have stuff here, Patreon, Twitch. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.